Welcome. You're listening to The Weather Lounge, a podcast by WeatherWorks. Get ready to explore the world of weather and connect with engaging guests, bringing you fun and thought-provoking stories of just how weather shapes our lives, sometimes in ways you've never imagined. So, join us as we unravel the mysteries of the atmosphere. Today's episode starts right now.
Hello there, and thanks for joining us in the Weather Lounge. I'm your host, meteorologist Brad Miller, and joining me for today's podcast for meteorologist Mike Mahalik is another friendly face here at WeatherWorks, and I think you've heard before is our meteorologist Jen Diorio. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, Brad. How are you?
I'm doing okay. You know, it's nice to have you back on the podcast, and I think you're going to be on quite a bit this upcoming summer. We're going to have a good time here, and it's nice to be out of the grips of winter, though. That's for sure.
Definitely. I am not as much of a winter fan as much as I am a summer fan and all things weather that comes along with the summer season. So I am very much looking forward to it and looking forward to being on the podcast more this summer as well.
Yeah, we got a lot of great stuff coming in as we do shift the seasons here. We had that kind of spring tease back in, I think it was like late February, early March, and a lot of folks were, hey, is winter over? But then the old negative NAO showed up, which was supposed to be around for a good portion of the winter, but decided to show up in March and early April, and that kind of put a damper on our early spring.
Definitely did. I'm very excited that it is 70 degrees here today.
Yeah, it is nice, and we've got the Masters coming up. That's always a sign of spring if you're a golf fan, and it's always good to have a little Jenny D in your life on the
Well, I
podcast.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and you know what's funny, because Jen, when you first came to WeatherWorks, and I don't know, maybe I was the only one, but I always thought your name was Jen Delorio. And I never realized till like a couple of weeks later that it's an I there. It's a D apostrophe for all of our listeners. Iorio, and I always thought that was an L. So I always was like Jen Delorio, and no, it's
no, that is common because it's a capital I. So depending on what font you use, that could look like a lowercase L. So I get Delorio quite frequently, but
So me being the jerk that I am, just calling her Jenny Diorio, just to
Exactly.
But it's great to have you on the podcast, Jen. And we're looking forward to a good summer here. And we've got a lot of topics to explore here. A lot of on the current agenda, what's been going on. We'll talk about the solar eclipse. We'll talk about this past nor'easter. And, what may be in store here as we head on through the rest of the month of April and especially into May. So we'll cover all that in just a few minutes. We're going to take a break and be right back.
Have you ever been dehydrated? I certainly have, and it's not fun. Headaches, muscle spasms, cramps, confusion, and disorientation are just some of the things you experience with a lack of water. So proper functional hydration is essential for everyone's daily lives, but sometimes water just doesn't cut it. And that's where Liquid IV comes in. They're the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, and their hydration multiplier is something you're most likely missing in your daily routine. With just one stick, you can hydrate twice as fast than using water alone. It has 3 times the amount of electrolytes than leading sports drinks, made from non-GMO ingredients, and it's chock full of essential vitamins. I personally enjoy the passion fruit flavor myself, but there's other great flavors you can choose from. So whether you're out landscaping, plowing a parking lot in a snowstorm, heading out for that afternoon jog, or even just feeling run down, Liquid IV is your go-to source for hydration and wellness. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code WeatherLounge at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code WeatherLounge at liquidiv.com.
And welcome back to the Weather Lounge. And again, meteorologist Brad Miller here. And of course, we've got our own WeatherWorks meteorologist, Jen Diorio, join us here for our first, I guess, spring topic, Jen. And like we talked about, we're happy to be now past the throes of winter for the most part. And, Jen, just a couple of days ago, the big story, and probably the biggest story, we'll have for a while with any kind of solar activity, was the big solar eclipse.
Yes, for sure. Everyone was talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was all over social media, of course. A lot of our folks and meteorologists here, WeatherWorks, were able to partake in a lot of different parts of the country. You know, our own Frank Lombardo, our CEO, he was down in Texas. We had a couple of folks, Rob Reel and Chelsea down there, and Katie at Nashville for the Connects event down there in Nashville. So again, you know, and we had a few of our other folks. Simon, he was up in New Hampshire, and we had a few other folks out in upstate New York, including Sean and Eric. You know, just so again, a lot of our staff was enjoying the solar eclipse live.
Definitely. Yeah, it was really cool sight to see. I mean, I would have loved to see it in totality, but I am on Long Island, so only saw partial, but it was still very cool to see. Went to the beach and kind of watched it there. And it looked like it was almost kind of like a cloudy day with the sun starting to go down when it was in its maximum kind of peak. But yeah, I definitely would love to see a total one at some point in my life, because just the scenes of, you know, what our coworkers showed, Brad, of like how it really looked like the sun had just gone down, is crazy and really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, you can check out, you know, some of our the photos and videos from a lot of our staff. You can just go to our Twitter page and also on Facebook. So there was some good stuff out there. And like you said, if you were in New Jersey or you know, there were a lot of clouds around. You know, Pennsylvania, even good parts of New York that were supposed to have good viewing ended up not so good at the end of it. Our own Sean Rowland, he was up in Rochester, and unfortunately, the clouds came in a little bit thicker and faster than he expected, and didn't get to see a good amount of the eclipse. I was talking to him earlier this morning. But again, you know, it just depended upon where you were, and for those folks that did see the whole thing, and from what I read, you know, it kind of it's. I was watching a time, or not. I wasn't watching a time lapse. It said in the Twitter feed, "This is not a time lapse," and I guess apparently it goes from basically light to dark within like a minute or two as the sun gets right in front of the moon gets right in front of the sun.
Wow.
It's you know it's just amazing how fast you know it occurs, and also I guess if you're not in that path of totality or like 99.99 to 100%, you still don't get that shadow and you still stay pretty light because the sun is just so bright anyway.
Yeah, I honestly thought it was going to get a little bit darker than it did because, you know,
Yeah, we were
89%.
still 80-90% for most of the
Right.
Northeast.
Right. So, and I didn't have, you know, thankfully I didn't have the cloud cover on Long Island. I just had some high cloud, so it really didn't obscure it at all. So I thought it was going to get darker than it did, to be completely honest. But yeah, and then when I saw some of the pictures of what it looks like with the totality, I was like, wow, that's like that 10%, 11% is a significant
Big
difference that you
difference.
wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Yeah, same across most of Pennsylvania, New Jersey. It just looked like an overcast day, and it was like at dusk, and then you know,
Yep, exactly.
and then of course the clouds broke, you know, an hour later, and it looked nice during the evening, but you know, too late. It was
Right.
over. And I think speaking of your next one, I think there's one in 2044, but it's out in Montana. But the big one, I guess, is the year later, 2045. And that's the one that cuts through the entire country, I think, that goes from west to east, but down into the southeastern U.S. So I think if you want to go see your next one, Jen, you have to go down to like Florida.
Yeah, and then the one after that is, I did a little bit more research, is 2079. And that literally goes right over my house on Long Island. So I'll have to look for, I guess it's one thing that I'll look forward to being 80 years old is you know, if I'm still on Long Island,
Yeah, yeah.
a total eclipse
Yeah, that
moment.
one I did look at too. Yeah, it goes up right up I-95, but I think it like starts in the Mid-Atlantic. Like south of there is no eclipse. It just kind
Yeah,
of picks up right there, then goes northeast into
yeah.
eastern Canada. But yeah, I doubt I'll be around, unfortunately. So anyway, yeah, so that was a great thing to watch, and you know the expectations were just you know phenomenal all across. I mean, just some of the videos that came through social media everywhere from Texas, even in like Mexico, there were some great videos coming from down there where they had totality and you know folks just cheering it on, and pretty cool.
Yep, very cool.
And unfortunately, the traffic though, some of the bad parts, I guess, of the eclipses. A lot of folks were like traveling back from New Hampshire, Vermont, and upstate New York. It was taking them like 5, 6, 7 hours.
Oh, wow.
The roads were just so clogged up, and just trying to get back. But I guess they all said it was worth it anyway. So
Yeah, I can imagine the traffic that around those areas that were in the total path. I can imagine how clogged up it got. That wasn't too bad around here. A little bit of traffic kind of.
well, there's always traffic on Long Island. I don't care if there's an eclipse or not.
Exactly. I know. That's literally what I said to my family yesterday, is that like we had more traffic. There's more traffic leaving the beach over the summer,
Yeah.
like on a normal beach day, than there was yesterday. So wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, I've been out that way, but yeah, and I think I thought I read somewhere they put signs like even on like the LIE for like people, do not stop your car.
Oh yeah, there were signs everywhere. Do not stop your car. Use mass transit. They were
To
making
watch
it
the
sound
eclipse.
like apocalyptic. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't stare. Yeah, don't stare at the sun while you were,
Yeah,
driving.
Needed the
And
glasses.
yeah, it was. We were all like, okay, but not in the path of totality here. So it was a little bit, I would say, a little hyped up than it more than it needed to be on Long Island. But
We're going to talk about the nor'easter here in a minute too. But one thing I do want to just bring up here for a second here, is how about that earthquake last week?
that was crazy.
I mean, we're all working, and we all are doing our thing. And I remember just on the group me chat that we have, WeatherWorks, just when we talk about different observations, and it just blew up like when everyone felt it. Everyone that lives in the Northeast felt it, obviously. Some more so than others based on where how close you were to the epicenter. But it was everyone was like, earthquake. Was that an earthquake? I mean, just like crazy.
That was crazy. We'll see if that ever happens again, but that was like a pretty unique experience that is not common for sure. I mean, it was the biggest earthquake in New Jersey since the 1700s. So, to kind of experience and feel something like that was just crazy. And it was kind of ironic because at the time that the earthquake happened, I was on the phone with our CEO, Frank, at the moment. And he was like, I think we're having an earthquake. And I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, like an earthquake that of that magnitude, whatever. And I had about a 20-second lead time. And then, while we're on the phone, 20 seconds later, I start feeling it here. And I was like, wow, okay, definitely is an earthquake. So I had a little bit of forewarning than most others did.
Oh, by the way, the earthquake's coming. What?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was definitely
that
crazy.
was crazy. And the epicenter actually was maybe 10, 15 miles by the way crow flies to our office, our home office in Hackettstown.
Yep, not far at all.
No, it was right off 78 there. That's that was crazy. And
I think that the thing that spooked, I was, saw some videos and whatnot on Twitter, and I think the biggest thing that spooked me is that the noise that the earth made from the earthquake. It wasn't even like the noise of a building shaking or things falling down. It was like the actual noise of the earth moving was frightening. And, I know a lot of people that we work with said that was probably the thing that was of most concern. And yeah, I would agree. If I had heard that noise, I would have been definitely scared. We didn't have any noise here. It was kind of more just like swaying and a little bit of shaking as if you were like on a boat. And a couple of things moving around on like top shelves and whatnot. But yeah, the noise was incredible.
I kind of thought about it. I was like, what does this feel like? It almost felt like, do you ever get a cavity filled and they got to drill it out? And it's like that deep. It's like that. I mean, you have Novocaine usually, but it's you just feel that like that deep drilling feeling, and that's kind of what it felt like. I mean, just a low rumble and just. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. No, it was and the aftershock that happened.
Yeah.
What, 10 hours later?
There were a bunch of them. Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that was very strong too. I barely felt that one over here, but
I felt the one of them at like 6 p.m. right before we got done.
That was the one. I think that was like a 3.8 or something. Yeah. But yeah, the fact that the aftershock was as strong as it was too was, I mean, it's crazy. Like, this is New Jersey. This is in California.
Yeah, well, then they had the big one back in was it Taiwan just a couple of weeks
Yes.
ago earlier
Yep.
in that was a big boy, but yeah, that's something you don't want around here, that's for sure. But yeah, it was definitely the exciting week, I guess. Of course, then you had the nor'easter,
Yes.
and that was
Yeah.
another one that we had a storm that we saw it coming almost like a week ago. I mean, as meteorologists, you're like, the setup is there, you know, and we're always waiting for something. All right, what's going to change on this? It's a week out. This whole winter's kind of been like that, where all right, there's something that's pretty, it looks like it's going to happen where we're going to have a good coastal setup, a good nor'easter setup, but then something goes wrong. The trough develops too early, or something comes out of there too late. Um, but this one was on the models for a good 7-8 days before it even occurred.
Yeah, it was a pretty robust signal, that's for sure. And I think if it had happened in like the middle, early to mid February, it could have been a pretty
Oh yeah,
blockbuster storm for most of, the northeastern seaboard.
yeah. It was the blocking was there. I mean, everything that we wanted for a lot of the storms earlier in the winter, which I think we got like one or two that actually panned out, but that one would have been a 2 or 3 day crusher in the middle of the winter for sure. I mean, everybody would have gotten a good amount of snow, even right up to the coast, just based on that track. A little bit inland on some spots. I mean, maybe the immediate coastal areas might have gone the rain, but it would have been powerful enough to where it allowed folks got 1 to 2 feet of snow widespread across the Northeast.
Definitely. Definitely.
But and it did happen in across parts of the elevations. I mean, there were some ski areas. I mean, I do the certified snowfall totals up there for Vermont, New Hampshire, and I had several locations getting 20 to 30 inches. I mean, it was just a long, drawn out storm that it basically started like Wednesday afternoon up there and didn't stop until almost Saturday morning.
Right. Yeah, and, combine the other, weather kind of hazards. And
Yeah, you probably had wind issues on Long Island.
we definitely, yeah, we had coastal flooding and wind. Coastal flooding and wind was our big thing. I live more inland, so we never have a coastal flooding concern here, thankfully. But yeah, the wind was incredibly strong. And the next morning, when, I mean, thankfully we didn't lose any, big trees, and our power lines are underground, so nothing like that. But the next morning there was a little bit of a carnage in my backyard. It was just like branches all over the place. Yeah, it was pretty intense, and it was like from that like 9 o'clock to like midnight-ish hour was a couple hours was pretty intense wind. So yeah, if we had had that with snow, I could have seen some, potentially some blizzard conditions happening.
Yeah, I mean that setup was there. I mean, it's just it was something that we were hoping to get a few other times in the winter. But like I said, it seemed like always something went wrong where the northern jet wouldn't cooperate with the southern jet, or
Yep.
vice versa. They get that big phasing storm. It just seemed like all the storms were just off a little bit, where we would get one branch versus the other, and then the other one come through.
There was always one puzzle piece that didn't just exactly fit,
But that's wintertime in the Northeast. I mean,
and that's Mother Nature.
and the amazing thing is when you get that kind of phasing is that it doesn't matter how warm it was before the storm or how warm it can be after a storm. If it can phase like that, even if it's early April, I mean, you'll get a big system just like parts of New England saw. But and even like our forecast areas, there was a lot of sleet involved. Even from like southern New Hampshire all the way down through a lot of Connecticut, even upstate New York. Um, and sleet doesn't care. It falls, and whether it's April or October, it's going to sit there and it's going to prime the pavement. So anyone that says, "Oh, it's too warm to stick on pavement," you put a little sleet in there, it'll happen.
Sleep takes no directions and just kind of
No,
does what it wants. And yeah, and it's so much harder for our clients to remove as well, just because of that density. And especially I felt like with this system too, kind of hearing a lot about how, rain with the sleet, it was just everything was very kind of like heavy and wet. And that I can imagine was.
Yeah, and sleet will accumulate at 34, 35 degrees. It doesn't matter. It'll just, like you said, it'll prime that pavement or surfaces, and then if you get some snow on top of that, you're off to the races. It's funny because Ken Elliott, one of our senior meteorologists at WeatherWorks, when I first started, we were just talking about sleet and stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, you know what? Sleet and salt, they'll just kind of lay there in the sleet molecule look over at the salt and say, 'What are you doing here? You can't do anything to me.'" Just kind of, just like, yeah, because it just sits there and it just,
It's not going to do a whole lot, that's for sure.
yeah, salt to melt the ice and snow away, but yeah, you got some sleet there. It takes a while, and it's just gonna lay there and laugh at the salt. Yeah, so kind of glad the nor'easter. I mean, it took forever too. I mean, that thing finally got out of here it took until Sunday, really.
I'm not going to lie, last week was a pretty gloomy, doom and gloom week.
It was.
I mean, that was 2 straight days. I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday. I can't remember now, but 2 straight days of rain, and then just
Annoyingness.
yes, exactly. Mostly cloudy skies, snow or rain showers, depending on when you were. It really,
Temperatures didn't get out of the 40s, and
yeah, really took a while. And yeah, that was the other thing too with that steady rain, nothing like a steady rain at 38, 39, 40 degrees with thunder. It was like, what's going on? But yeah, that was rough. So I'm a person that I like rain every once in a while, but I don't know about you, Brad, but I just feel like the last couple of months, it's just been so much like rain and wet weather and cloudiness. And, we need some sun. We need some sunshine.
I mean, the El Nino panned out this year. It's just that some of the phasing, like we talked about, didn't always pan. I mean, the moisture was there. The southern jet was active, especially for the second half of the winter. And like you said, it was just a lot of moisture, and it just wasn't coupling up with the cold air at the right time. But I mean, look at how much rain some areas got since,
oh my gosh, I know.
February. I mean, some areas are like
in December too, even going back into December.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it seems like every event, 1 to 2 inches, another 2 inches of rain. Then we had flooding issues over the winter. It just was just a lot of rain. Just and in the wintertime, it just doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't evaporate as well as it would in the summer, obviously.
No. Yep.
Moving on from the nor'easter, moving on from the solar eclipse and the earthquake, we're finally looking ahead to some decent weather. Granted, we still have some cool days in April, and the occasional, dare I say, snow shower in some climatological spots. But basically, we've turned the corner now. Planting season starts coming up. There's still frost though possibilities. Inland. It goes all the way until late April. I know. I live up towards the Poconos, and you can't plant safely here until at least the first week of May, because you still get some frost.
Right.
But people on Long Island, and there's some spots on Long Island that get cold and isolated spots. I know that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think the farther east you go, the more isolated kind of coldness you can get. I live more, kind of, I'm not in Nassau County, I'm in Suffolk County, but a little bit farther east in Suffolk, not, as far as like out towards the Twin Forks, but, I'll definitely get colder than, places out in Nassau, where it's more urbanized and more population, etc. So, we can, I mean, not last night, but the couple nights before, still having some chilly nights.
Well, it's that sandy soil, especially like you said, on the eastern side of Long Island, where, if you do have calm nights, I mean, that temperature can still drop pretty fast.
Yeah, definitely.
But, yeah, so, I mean, again, looking ahead to the nice spring weather as we start to see the flowers blooming and everything. And one thing I've noticed in the last couple of days was the activity of like the bees and stuff. They're getting their pollen now finally, and they're visiting trees, and just everything's kind of awakening. The birds are out earlier. You can hear them chirping. I mean, even when it was crappy last week, during the nor'easter, it was still kind of, the birds were up early, even though the high was only going to be like 42 degrees and rain, but they know it's coming.
They know it's coming. Yeah. I like hearing the birds in the morning, and I've been hearing them a little bit more lately. And yeah, not excited about the bees. I'm not a fan, but yeah, no, definitely everything's, I mean, I went on a walk, 2 days ago, and I got hit right in the face with a bug, and I was like, that's how it's, we're getting into spring. They're all coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I play a lot of golf when we get into spring and summer, especially. The one thing I am always afraid of are ticks, and
Oh yeah,
they've been horrible lately.
they have been. Yeah, Long Island is the worst with ticks. Like there are so many ticks, it's ridiculous. And 99% of our ticks have Lyme disease, so you have to be really, really careful.
Yeah,
So,
you got to.
um, yeah, I actually made somewhat of a joke the other day when I was out for a walk because I had my dog with me and I was, I do all her, normal flea and tick prevention and whatnot. And I said, a little bit of a joke to her because I talked to her. She's my child. So I was like, you have flea and tick protection. I do not. So please let's not bring any of this, back into the house as you're, walking through all the shrubbery and leaves and grass and all this. She just loves to get all in there. But
Well, that's our
um,
WeatherWorks mascot.
I know, Coconut, the
Good
WeatherWorks
old
mascot.
Coconut.
Yep, yep.
Coconut's a good dog, yeah.
Yeah, she's a good girl.
Definitely a part of WeatherWorks. That's
Yep,
Jen's
check her
dog.
out on the Instagram. Scroll back a little bit, she'll be there.
Oh yeah. No, Coconut's a good dog. I like seeing Coconut, but yeah. So allergies, of course, that becomes an issue as we get deeper into spring. And you were actually on with us a couple of, I guess it was a year or two ago. We were talking about allergies and weather in your health, and it was a previous podcast episode, but. Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, a lot of folks suffer from allergies every year, and it's just a sneezing fit, or whether you get just run down. I guess it
Yeah,
affects everybody differently.
it really does. I mean, allergy symptoms vary so dramatically across the board. I don't know. I feel like the last couple of years, my allergies are just like more active, or I don't really know if there's any rhyme or reason to that. I did do a little bit of like research and, we did have some trees start to leaf a bit earlier, kind of in the mid Atlantic and the Northeast this year. Was it like as early as, like ever recorded? No. I mean, it was definitely an earlier start to spring, but it was an earlier start that according to the source that I looked at, which I believe was the NPN, that it's kind of like every 1 to 4 years we get a spring this early. So nothing crazy, but yeah. And I mean, I don't even have any blooming yet on my trees here. It's just they're starting to leaf and my allergies are already pretty bad. So I'm kind of not looking forward to the next couple of weeks in that sense. But it's also once they start to bloom, then it kind of, I think, gets a little bit, you kind of got to get a little bit worse before you get better. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, when I live down south, I mean, everyone on the podcast probably knows this. I mean, I lived in Charleston for a good 15 plus years, and I'll tell you, the biggest problem down there is pollen, and it starts in like February, and it peaks like around early March, mid March, and it's not just like a little bit either. I mean, it cakes up on your car. It's did you ever get like a snow shower at night and it like coats everything up? You get like a coating or like a couple of tenths. That's what happens down there with like when you get your first like warm, really I guess extended warm up, and you hit 80 degrees and everything, all the pollen just starts popping up, and you can see it in the air. You can see it's on your car. It gets inside your house.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
no, it's not.
annoying.
I went to a family member's wedding in Austin, Texas on February 14th, and I literally walked out of the airport and my eyes started to itch. And I was like, oh gosh, like what is the allergy situation? And then every one of my family members was like, oh, like it's definitely, and all the trees are bloomed. And yeah, I had to start popping the allergy medicine even then.
Yeah, and then the thing is when you finally get a good rainstorm, it kind of washes everything out. But there's like the puddles are just it's almost like somebody took flour and threw it on top of a puddle, but it's just pollen, just yellow puddles everywhere. It's
Yeah,
crazy, but
and then you start having the mold issue after that
yeah. Yeah.
from that. So it's like you really can't win.
Well, you did an internship, didn't you, at Weather Service in Charleston?
I was in Columbia.
Columbia, that's right,
Yeah,
Columbia, yeah.
yeah. And I was there mostly in the summer though. So I didn't see as much of that pollen, and I don't have a grass.
Yeah, no, the pollen's gone then, but
Yeah, so but
summertime in Colombia is brutal. It's
it
hot.
was it was hot. Yeah, it took me a couple of days to probably like I would say 2 weeks to really get used to it without being like, wow, like my water intake needs to go up significantly. I need to not, be in the sun this often or I'm gonna faint. It was yeah, it was hot. I was there
And
from
along those lines, I mean, I was more on the coastal side down by Charleston, and yeah, of course it gets hot and humid down there, but we at least usually get a sea breeze by the afternoon. It would push in, but the sea breeze would only make it as far as maybe like I-95. So Columbia used to just sit there and bake at like 101 with a dew point of like 75 all day.
oh yeah, it was and urbanized too now too. So
Yeah,
yeah, it
Gamecocks
was
are there, South Carolina, University of South Carolina. I mean, it's just it is a very it's built up pretty quick right in that area. It's just
I loved it, but it was hot.
yeah, no, it's just that whole area from like Atlanta goes right on through Central South Carolina. It's just it just bakes in the summertime. I don't know how anyone could just stay there all day like that. It's just oof. It's April, and we start looking ahead to other things now with weather. We turned the corner with our summer forecast here at WeatherWorks. We switched to summer clients. And then, of course, our main focus turns to severe weather and flooding issues. On top of our normal everyday forecasts, a lot of folks are doing outdoor projects now, whether it's roofing. DPWs are doing a lot of work with the roads and filling potholes, so they need dry time as well. So that's where our forecasts really start to focus going forward, away from the winter aspects of snow removal and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I didn't realize, how valuable our forecasts really are until, I'm going to be, which is crazy that my 4-year anniversary is coming up.
Wow, time
Yeah,
flies.
time flies when you're having fun. That's I mean, I cannot believe that 2020 during all this COVID
Oh
craziness
yeah.
and when I graduated, couch graduation as we were calling it. And now we're 4 years out from that, but yeah, I didn't realize, how much forecast that WeatherWorks, produces that gives so much decision support and so much clarity into workability in regards to rainfall timing amounts. I mean, how useful it is to so much clientele across the both the public and the private sectors, and how they really use it. And our consultation, the fact that you can pick up a phone and call us at any time and ask for updates or how long is this downpour going to last, etc. It's really 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 helpful. And I don't know if you're like this, Brad, but anytime I like pass a landscaping truck or some people working outside in adverse weather conditions, I just think to myself, man, they need WeatherWorks. Like they should have known that this is coming.
Yeah, no, I mean like you said, it's very important. You tear a roof off a house and you got to put a new one on, and like you don't do that overnight. So they
Exactly.
rely on a 2 to 3 day dry time because you take that roof off and it rains. That homeowner is not going to be too happy that their insides of their attic or whatever is going to get wet.
Yeah. And then we're back to allergies with the mold. So
Yeah, that's true. And then of course we have lightning clients too. I mean, folks rely on us for lightning detection and a lot of sporting events and a lot just so many outdoor activities this time of the year and concerts. So moving along here, I guess the last topic we can talk about is the upcoming summer season. What can we expect? And the hot topic, Jen, I've been reading about also a lot on social media is already the hurricane season.
yep, I've been seeing the same.
I mean, some of the expert, outside of us, of course, that predict the hurricane season activity. Colorado State's another big one out there, but they're all predicting an above normal season with so like, only because the Atlantic Ocean it's so above normal already temperature wise, and that's good. That's really the driving force, as we go into the upcoming summer.
Yeah, that warm ocean water. I mean, it's just yeah, I think that's going to be a problem. So that's such a driving factor of storms in the US. And, how warm can we get the Atlantic? How warm can the Gulf get? And yeah, I mean, what, last year weren't portions of the Gulf up to like 100 degrees or something?
Yeah, down there around the Keys or something, there was some really, but that water just sits there and it doesn't really move too much. But yeah, I remember seeing some. I remember they were doing some reports on that down there. But yeah, that's just such fuel for these storms, and especially if you don't have any shear going on, and which is basically the change in direction and speed of the wind as you go up. So the less shear you have, the better chance you have of a tropical system spinning into a hurricane, even a major hurricane. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll have our long range team on here on the podcast, and we'll definitely talk about what to expect this upcoming summer. Again, not only here in the Northeast, but across the entire U.S., including the Midwest, which we do forecast for here at WeatherWorks, and again, we'll talk about the hurricane season and how active that's going to be, and and again, the hurricane season. It all comes down to, yeah, there's a storm out there, but then it comes down to, what's the trough and ridge pattern look like across the United States? Where's it going? Do you have a high pressure area in the Northeast that'll shove the storm into the Gulf, or do you get that trough in Midwest and the Ohio Valley where it can pull a storm right up, the Atlantic, the East Coast there, and bring us a hurricane even here? So. And we've had a couple last couple of years. I mean, it's been pretty active. Not direct hits, but more. We had Irene, and we had not Irene. What was that one with all the tornadoes? I can't remember now.
Oh, Ida.
Ida, yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah,
That was a bad one.
That was a bad one.
But again, and that was one of those systems that just kind of clipped the area, but there was so much moisture ahead of it, and the perfect setup for severe weather and the flooding. So
and the flooding was insane. I had actually made the wrong decision in thinking that I could, because I really didn't think the heavy rain and the flooding was going to start until a couple hours later, and I had made the decision, okay, I want to be, I was still living in Jersey at the time by the office and wanted to be back on the island for, the kind of remnants to move through with the wind and everything like that. And the flooding going through the city was absolutely insane. I've not had, and the turnaround don't drown. I wanted to, but like when you're in so much traffic and there's
no, yeah, you can't do that.
You're just stuck. And I had gotten into like a minor accident too. Thankfully I was fine, but my car was not. But that's just like the rain was coming down so fast that like the person just did not see me and just sideswiped me. And yeah, it was just, the flooding was crazy. And yeah, that was quite the system. I mean, that was pretty
yeah,
insane.
it just came down so fast, and there's no place for the rain to go. And when you get that much water in that short amount of time, I mean, those urban areas, I mean, just there's all pavement, and it just goes, and the drains can only handle so much. So, once you get to that point where, where's it going to go? It just ponds up on the roadway, and then, one thing leads to another. So, well, I think that's about it, Jen. Got anything else to add right now?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much, covered it, and we'll see kind of what the next couple of months brings us. We'll, move out of kind of allergy season and April showers bringing May flowers, and then we'll transition to, hurricanes and see what kind of severe weather we have in store with us, and, see what kind of season that we have. So
yeah, we'll have some good topics, of course, coming up here on the podcast. We'll cover weather from time to time as well, current stuff, and if there's a big event maybe on the horizon that we can all talk about, something that we'll focus on here. But like I said, we'll have the long range team on here in a couple of weeks as well. We'll talk about what they expect in the hurricane season and severe weather season, and for the upcoming summer. But I think that's about it for now. And again, thanks for joining us here in the Weather Lounge, and we will see you back here in a few weeks.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of the Weather Lounge podcast. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on all your favorite podcasting platforms so you don't miss out on future episodes. Have questions or comments? Just email us at weatherlounge@weatherworksinc.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can also learn more about our parent company, WeatherWorks by visiting weatherworksinc.com and checking them out on social media as well. Thanks again for joining us, and until next time, stay curious and stay weather-wise.